Welcome, Game of Thrones fans. We are back to review episode 4 of House of the Dragon, titled King of the Narrow Sea. Very quickly, if you like the content, please subscribe and like. We'll be reviewing every single episode of House of the Dragon, posting every Monday. So this episode, very interesting as they all have been. Didn't get a time jump this time around, so that was nice. We're sticking with the same kind of time frame that we got from the last episode. This review is going to focus a lot on Rhaenyra. I feel she was the centerpiece of this episode, and we got to see a lot about her character, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's get right to it. The episode begins with Daemon making his big homecoming, so to speak. He's been off at war for 4 years. There's been a lot of speculation about what's going on with the crown now, because while he disposed of the crab feeder, he was anointed king of the narrow sea. He's coming back as a war hero of sorts, but the crown is concerned whether he's coming back in peace, to bend the knee, or is he coming back looking to usurp the throne? So he comes into the throne room. He has on this goofy crown. It looks like it's made out of reeds. It looks very silly, but in the end, he is coming to make peace. He bows the knee. Viserys is overjoyed. And one thing we hadn't seen so far in the series is the camaraderie between the brothers. I mean, when they had that moment after that, it was almost like they were teenagers again. They're laughing, having a good old time, making inside jokes with each other. We hadn't seen that in the previous 3 episodes. Everyone else was kind of like on the outs with them. Even Rhaenyra and Alicent were looking at them like, what is going on between these two? So that was cool to see. Even though it was very brief, but it was cool to see Daemon come back and on the surface at least appears to be coming in peace. But we know how Daemon is, so we know that there's always going to be ulterior motives. So that moves us right into my discussion about Rhaenyra. When Daemon comes back, she hadn't seen him in years, but we know she's been hearing about the exploits, everything he did, killing the crab feeder. So you'll notice in the throne room, she's looking at him, and there's like this intrigue, in her face, like, where is he now? What is his mindset like now? And you can tell she's happy to see him, but she's a little bit wary too, because I'm sure she's heard stories about everything that he's done out there. And Damon even mentions it, the entire army that he was fighting against, the Triarchy, he basically slaughtered all 2,000 of them and left them rotting on the beach as a warning sign to anyone else who wanted to, usurp the throne or, establish their independence. So she knows about his warrior spirit and also the danger he potentially possesses to her status as the eventual queen. So that was real interesting to see, that kind of dynamic in her face as she's looking on. But overall, Rhaenyra is not in a good mood because number one, she kind of feels Daemon being there kind of hurts her standing. And then number two, she knows that her father is not happy with her because she cut her marriage tour short. This was basically the equivalent of a dating app. She's sitting there, she's getting proposals from all different types of men, even children, trying to get her hand, and it's doing nothing for her because she knows deep down that these men really have no interest in her as a person. They just want, as she mentioned, her Targaryen blood and essentially to get an easy pathway to the crown. So there's really no interest in her as a person. So she is just over it. You can see it on her face. She cuts it short. And the funny thing is, as she's leaving, you have these houses literally killing each other over the crown. They get into a little dispute. And the Blackwoods and the Brackens, I believe their feud goes back to ancient times. So that boils over during the courtship period, but she's essentially over it. But her father spent months getting this little marriage tour together. So Viserys is not really messing with her at all. He's giving her almost like the silent treatment. And it's funny to see because if you notice, when he first married Alicent, she was doing that. She was giving him the silent treatment. So it's funny that even him, the older parent and all that, is still kind of having this juvenile response to her insubordination, so to speak. So it shows you how much alike they are even with the age difference. So one good thing that came out of this is that we're finally getting to see some warmth between Alicent and Rhaenyra. Remember years ago now, in the first episode, they were very close. The marriage broke them apart, and now they're kind of realizing that we only have each other. They're basically prisoners on different sides of the coin due to the crown. On one end, Alicent is a prisoner because her role now as the queen is just to pump out babies and look pretty. She has no authority. She has no true friends. She's just almost like an ornament to the crown. And she's lost that. She really misses the time when she kind of had that autonomy as kind of a maiden of the court, so to speak, and had that freedom. And it's all gone now. And she feels invisible. So she is hurt by that and she feels lost. On the other end, Rhaenyra, she's going to be the future queen, but she still does not have that freedom either because she's not getting what she wants. She wants the ability to choose a spouse if she wants to have a spouse. She has not even convinced she wants to do that after what happened to her mother. And she feels constricted by the trappings of being a woman in this society. She doesn't feel like she has any freedom either. Her father is constantly on her about her duty and what she needs to do, and it's suffocating to her. So they're both stuck by these obligations to the crown that are uniquely put on women in particular. So they have a very tender moment where they hold each other's hands, and it seems like they're finally realizing that if we're going to navigate through this world and have any type of success, we need to depend on each other because there's no one else in the court that understands as women what we're going through. So we need to depend on each other. So that was a very touching moment, and I was glad to see that and glad to have them finally realize that before some tragedy happens and that be the way that they get pulled back together. So I'm glad at least now we kind of see them on the same page. So going further with Rhaenyra, we find out what Daemon's true intentions were coming back. It wasn't to bend the knee to his brother and make amends. It was really to try and get inside Rhaenyra's mind. And this was very uncomfortable because frankly, he went about grooming her. And there's one thing to groom a young girl, that's bad enough. But to groom your niece, that it was very, very uncomfortable to watch. So he sneaks her out of the castle, puts a beanie on her. She's looking like a hipster from New York. They go down to the underbelly of King's Landing. He takes her basically to a underground comedy show. And this is where the seeds start getting planted because she's realizing now for the first time that the common folk are not really with her. Yeah, they think you're the realm's delight and all this stuff, but as far as you being a good queen or them even looking forward to being under the leadership of a queen, the common people are not trying to hear that. They're making jokes about her, how ridiculous it is, how it's going to cause warfare in the future when Aegon comes of age. And Damon has a smirk on his face as he's looking at her, uh, taking all this in, and she's realizing what's going to be in store for her. And I think she's starting to realize the work that needs to be done on her part. She's always been complaining about her father and what's going on in the court, but it's like, no, if you really want to be a leader, you need to win the common people. Damon realized that early. He has the entire gold cloaks under his supervision in the city. So he already has a base there. She has no base. Her only supporter as of right now is her father. That's not going to be enough for her to keep the crown. So I think at this stage, this is very good that he did that so she can start seeing that you need to get to work. You need to start building some type of coalition for yourself because it can't be just Sir Kristen. He's on your side, obviously, but you need more than that if you really want to be a powerful ruler and keep your enemies at bay. So that was the first part. That wasn't anything too bad, kind of planting that seed. But then the next thing is he takes this poor girl to a whorehouse. And, orgies are going on and she's looking shocked at first. And he does something very sneaky. He pulls the beanie off her head so everybody in there can see that it's her with her, her golden hair or her white platinum hair. And then he starts making moves on her. They start kissing, pulls her pants down, and Rhaenyra's with it. She's ready to go. Remember I said before when he first came back to the court, she had this kind of mixed look on her face, like she was very intrigued by him now and what he's accomplished because now he's a full-fledged conquering warrior. So all that kind of ties in. She's ready to go and give him everything that he wants. But then there's a problem. Good old Damon, as we saw before, he looked impotent. Well, he was impotent. He couldn't go through with it. Now, if you looked at the episode recap that the HBO people put after the show, the director said the reason why is because he was thrown off by the fact that she was into it. And because she was into it like that, he lost his control. I guess sex for him is just simply power and being able to have control. And once he didn't have that control anymore and there was a consummate thing, it turned him off. And that's why he left. I kind of got where they were going with that, but that really didn't work for me, to be honest with you. I kind of got the bigger impression watching that there was also a big aspect of guilt that made him impotent in that scene. The fact that, yes, there was control and that he liked being in control and everything, but I also looked at it as the fact that he realized what he was doing and the fact that he was in his mind, quote unquote, corrupting her. That kind of turned him off a little bit because we know Damon's only soft spot is when it comes to family. Even as much as the issues he has with his brother, you remember when Corlys was actually criticizing his brother, he stopped him short and said, I can talk about my brother, but you mind your tongue. You don't say anything about him. So I think it was kind of the same thing also with Rhaenyra, that he knows what he's doing, he knows what it's going to lead to, and he knows he's putting her in a bad position. And I think at that point he kind of had a twinge of humanity and a twinge of guilt, and that contributed to turning him off, and that's why he kind of stormed off like that. Or maybe that's my wishful thinking. I kind of hope the best for Damon in all cases. But whatever the fact is, mission was accomplished. Everybody out in the open saw this. Several servants saw it. And then, unfortunately for Rhaenyra, there was a spy put out there called the White Worm, which is a little child, so to speak, that went back and told Otto everything that happened. But the key thing, I'm sure nobody missed this. That young kid that reported this to Otto, he came back with the money that he got from Otto and gave it to Damon's mistress, the mistress of Dragonstone. And that lets you know that she's still doing his bidding, meaning doing Damon's bidding, and still on the same page with him. But there's some issues going on there. The foundation is a little shaky because she continually reminded him afterward that, my purpose is not just to be a common whore. I have higher ambitions in my life. And Damon, he's still, trying to sleep off his hangover, so he's not really listening, but he needs to keep an eye on her because I can see her switching teams very quickly if Damon's cause seems not to be going the way it should. I don't see her staying there on the sinking ship. So she already has an ear with King's Landing and with Otto. So if Damon keeps like brushing her off and kind of treating her as an afterthought, I can really see her going over the Otto side and being like a double agent, which puts Damon in more peril. So that is something to keep an eye on with the White Worm and her contacts throughout the city. He needs to make sure that she stays happy, and if not, send her back to Dragonstone or do something. But I see her as potentially dangerous if Damon keeps, this cavalier attitude up. So let's go back to the fallout. And this is to me the most important scene of the series. So, well, not of the series, but of the episode when we had Rhaenyra being confronted by Alicent. And just to recap a little bit, Otto, of course, goes back to Viserys, tells him about, your daughter and your uncle were found coupling in the whorehouse. Viserys, of course, doesn't believe it. He's very upset, but you can tell deep down he knows what his daughter is capable of. And more importantly, he knows what his brother is capable of. So he knows deep down what the truth is. And one other point, maybe it was just me, when you saw Alicent actually eavesdropping, when I first saw her face, I thought that was Arya for a second. Maybe it was just me. She really favored her hiding behind that wall covering, so to speak. If she looked just like Arya to me, so that threw me off for about a couple seconds until I realized it was her. But going back to Rhaenyra and Alicent, when they had that scene, this is the first time where I kind of felt like, you know what? Rhaenyra is going to be a very good queen because she is an excellent liar. Like, of course, you got to be a great liar if you're going to be a politician. She didn't miss a beat. As soon as she realized what was going on and that Alicent got word of what her and Damon did, she went right into it. That, how could you not trust me, sister? You know what this means if my if my maidenhood is challenged, this is almost, akin to treason. I would never lie to you. Damon didn't touch me. She was laying it on very thick. For a second, she was convincing me that nothing happened. And I know we can play semantics. She claimed that, they didn't go through with the act, so she can say that quote unquote Damon didn't touch me. But come on now. You got very, very close to, there's no way you can argue that something didn't go down. So she basically lied to Alicent's face. And Alicent, I felt really bad for her because you can tell she does want to help Rhaenyra. She knows that she has to keep a connection with Rhaenyra because that's her only friend, in the royal court. So she wants to protect Rhaenyra. She doesn't want Rhaenyra to be shamed, and she wants to do everything in her power to protect her virtue. And that's essentially what she did. She went against her own father by telling Rhaenyra everything that happened, because this is going to give Rhaenyra ammo to fight against it when she eventually confronts her father. So Allison really put herself out there. And I'm wondering in episode 5 and beyond how she's going to feel because what did Rhaenyra do with that information? She went there and basically negotiated keeping her heir to the throne, and her negotiating tactic was, I will marry Lenora as you want me to strengthen the crown, to appease the sea snake, Corlys, and get our houses together and protect the throne. But if I'm going to do that, you need to do your duty as king. You need to remove Otto because Otto is my enemy and he has people spying on me and he can't be trusted. And Otto gave in. And I feel like this was a mistake. I understand why he did it and the need that, I think at this point he just exasperated with having to continually fight Rhaenyra on everything. He calls her a political headache, which she is. And I think he feels like in order to finally get this done with, I'm willing to part with Otto. But the reason why I feel that's a mistake is because it's like you're trading one enemy for another. On one hand, you had Corlys out there, and hopefully that's going to be resolved with this marriage. But now you've created another enemy potentially in Otto. And this is a more dangerous enemy because he has his daughter at your side. So her loyalties are going to be split, but she's probably not going to go against her father. So she's going to be reporting everything back that's going on in the court to him, even though he's not the hand anymore. And God knows what he's going to do with that information. Although he looked very, very hurt, but we know when people get hurt, they can become very vengeful. So we have no idea if he's going to start feeding information to Corlys or Rhaenys. Rhaenys is still a wild card out there. I think she's the most dangerous figure as far as in the royal court, as far as what she's going to do. And then you have Damon. Is he going to go to that side and start reporting information? We don't know what Otto's going to do yet, but he's one person you don't want to make an enemy. And I feel that, yes, it was calculated what he did by having Alicent go in there and make Viserys fall in love with her at the beginning of the series. So, but I was kind of thrown off a little bit by that. For him talking about Viserys to all of a sudden realize this far deep into it now that Otto deliberately had his daughter kind of, be available to you. That was a little bit kind of off for me for him to finally realize that after all this time. But I kind of watched it as he always knew that deep down, but now he had an excuse to use that to get rid of him. But I think overall, Otto did his job. He counseled on what he felt was the best move, which is making Aegon the heir. And I think deep down, that's the safest move because we know how the common folk think now. I don't blame the series for trying to be ambitious with naming his daughter as the heir, but it's going to cause a lot more chaos. We kind of already know that now. How deep the chaos is going to go, we'll have to see, but it's going to cause a lot of chaos, number one. And then number two, I think that you want to keep people like Otto close. You don't want them kind of flapping in the wind to their own devices. So I think deep down, this is going to be a big mistake. It's going to be a headache for Viserys as long as he's around, and definitely for Rhaenyra, assuming she gets the crown next. And as far as what I was saying about Viserys, as long as he's going to be around, it doesn't seem like that's going to be happening long. He's getting worse and worse every episode. Now he's lost more fingers. His body's literally rotting. When he's, that love scene with him and Alicent, he almost looks like a corpse on top of her. He has all these blotches on his skin and rot and everything. So it's not a good situation. It feels like at this point he's doing what he feels is right to try and correct all the wrongs from his reign, to try and get everything done, but I feel like he's making rash decisions. And this Otto one, I feel like is really going to bite him, removing Otto. I don't think that was a good move at all. But he still shows that he knows his daughter very well, because even after they had that confrontation where Rhaenyra claims that, nothing happened, you shouldn't believe him. He's like, it's all about perception. The truth doesn't matter at this point. Number one, the common people, your name is sullied now, and this is going to make it even harder for you to claim the throne. And this was the first time in the series that I kind of looked at Rhaenyra as kind of like a brat, so to speak. At this stage, I think we're 6 years past the first episode with the time jumps. And at some point, if you really want this crown like you claim you do in your birthright, you need to grow up and you need to start acting like a queen to be. All these little tantrums that you're throwing as far as, I don't want to do this, I wouldn't have to do this if I were a woman. Well, guess what? Life isn't fair. If you want the crown like you say you want, you need to do the things necessary to consolidate your power. Enough is enough at this point. We can't play these games anymore and have you pouting around and doing what you want to do, compromising the family name and compromising yourself. Because as Alicent told her, being in a whorehouse like that was stupid. It was very stupid and it was very reckless. And this is something you can't do if you're going to be a queen. So I'm hoping that this has finally been driven home this episode for her, that you can't be making these type of juvenile mistakes anymore. Yes, you're a young lady, but if you're going to assume the crown, you have to be wiser than your years. So it's time to really get in gear and act like a queen. So I think she finally realizes that now, especially when she had to take I guess I'm gonna call it the abortion tea, or the Plan B tea, to make sure that she doesn't get pregnant, or doesn't keep the pregnancy. So I'm kind of hoping that's all been driven home now. Oh, and one more point as far as that tea, we know that wasn't because of Damon, it's because of the the seduction she did right after with Sir Kristen Cole. And that was another reckless thing, because for those of you who don't know, if you're in the Kingsguard, you take a vow of chastity, number one. So him sleeping with the princess, that amounts to treason, and he could be put to death for that. So she's really putting him out there as well. We just have to hope that no one's seen them, which, it doesn't seem like that anybody caught them. But that's going to be another liability to keep in mind for the remaining episodes. Having him out there like that and having his emotions kind of compromised now wasn't a wise move either. So these mistakes can't happen anymore for Rhaenyra. This was a very costly one that could have removed her from the crown. And I hope that she finally realizes that now. So as we go into next episode, just a small preview. If you saw the trailer, we have a wedding coming up. I'm assuming it's the wedding between Rhaenyra and Laenor, Corlys's son. As we know, weddings are not safe in Game of Thrones universe. Already in the preview, you see a little fight breaking out. We don't know who broke out the fight. So something to keep in mind. We're probably going to get some more high drama next episode. So overall, I was very pleased with what we got. Some uncomfortable sex scenes, but luckily we were able to get through those. I feel like this episode dealt with a lot of kind of the unwanted consequences of our behaviors. That's what the Maester told Rhaenyra before he gave her the tea. This is to help with your unwanted consequence. And we see a lot of that this episode. A lot of the things that went on was because Rhaenyra was just reckless. And if she wants to really solidify herself, these things cannot happen again. So let me know what you think about this episode. How do you feel about Rhaenyra? Do you feel Rhaenyra is ready to be queen? Do you still feel like she has some immaturity that she has to work through? And let me know what you think about Alicent. I really am interested to see how she's going to react to Otto losing his status as the hand, because there's a good chance she may feel betrayed, because she told all this to Rhaenyra just to save her, but I don't think she anticipated her father losing his status. So she might feel betrayed. So this whole alliance that I was hoping that Rhaenyra and Alicent would have or renewed friendship going forward, it might already be fractured after this one episode and what happened with her father, Otto. So let me know what you guys think. Be sure to tune in back here for episode 5 review, which will be posted by next Monday afternoon. Thanks, guys, and have a good week.